when I moved to Chapel Hill back in 1992, a few years thereafter, I was the chapter advisor for the Beta chapter. I was president of the alumni board. And since then, we've raised a lot of money at the Beta House. I spent the first half of my career in public relations and advertising, and then the second in education. In the third part, final part, is fundraising. My education ranged from raising money for the business school at UNC to raising money for North Carolina Wesleyan College, where I was president for 5 years. And so 8 years ago, after a 5-year term, quote, retired for about 3 weeks, and then unretired and set up my fundraising business. And I've been running that for 8 years. And in the process, I planned and managed the anniversary campaign, the Deke National 175th. That was very successful, and we exceeded goal. And I've worked on Minnesota, I've worked on Wake Forest, and I had discussions with other chapters. So I know where you are and what you want to do. We all have dreams that we can't pay for, and fundraising is one way to do that. So it's really important, and I'm glad that you joined me tonight. I don't think we're going to go 90 minutes. I don't have 90 minutes worth of stuff, you know. But, we'll go through it. We'll do Q&A, and I'm going to give you my phone number and email address. And if you have specific questions, you know, fire away. It's close to my heart as you as well. So let's start. I'll just call people out. Just let me know your chapter and kind of where you are. Why don't we start with Heath Rico Story?
Hello, I'm Heath Rico Story, and I'm a excuse me, I'm a alum of Tau Delta, and also the chapter advisor for Tau Delta, as well as IOTA and Center College. And Tau Delta, of course, if you know, is University of the South. As far as the fundraising goes, I think we're just at the very start of that sort of endeavor. Kind of eager to get some feedback and some advice on how to get the fundraising going and going strong.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're involved with both Sewanee and Center College?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
Wow, a twofer.
Two.
Yeah. Okay. Matthew Lloyd.
Yes, sir, guys. Thanks for having me. So my name's Matt. I'm an alumni of the Mu Chi chapter out of Maryville College in Maryville, Tennessee. We don't have an alumni advisor. There is a reason that I'm in this meeting, is because I'm planning on becoming said alumni advisor. As of right now, I have a degree from Maryville in business analytics with a focus in financial analysis, and I'm the chief operating officer of a diesel company. We sell diesel parts and fix diesel trucks. And yeah, I guess, you know, other than that, I won't be around too long to be an alumni advisor, because I'm going to be shipped out to officer candidate school for the United States Marine Corps in January. Be a commissioned officer, infantry rifleman. And other than that, I'm just looking forward to figuring out how to help my chapter, because we're super low on fundraising and very, very small. So it's a pleasure to be part of this meeting.
Great. Maryville is a wonderful school. When I was at Wesleyan, we had lots of athletic battles with Maryville. Can't remember who won most of them, but okay, Charlie Brown.
There, sorry, unmuted. Hi, Jim. Yeah, I am a Syracuse alumnus, and I am the alumni advisor for the Harvard colony that got really killed by COVID and the lawsuit that the university had. So we are in sort of the process of, seeing what we need to do to just start to get some bodies on board in the fall. And we also have a huge problem in that Harvard University owns all the very expensive real estate in Cambridge. So, trying to get anything done is just ridiculously expensive for us. I am also the treasurer of the Rampant Lion Foundation, which is the charitable arm of DEEC. So,
Correct. And Syracuse, being such a great chapter, where are they with fundraising?
I don't know. That's that's Davoli. Good old Carmen Davoli. Well, since they own their own house, they actually seem to have pulled in quite a bit. They're in pretty good shape financially. I mean, Dick Clark, died and gave him $1 million. I'm not sure how voluntarily, but yes. So yeah, they've got the biggest and nicest house on campus, and they're in solid shape. I haven't had much to do with them. It's just
Okay.
the Harvard and the RLF that have kept me busy.
Okay. Ron Sorter, you've got a beautiful background behind your head there.
Yeah. I graduated from the University of Oklahoma in 1969. Our chapter went defunct in 1973. We were in the process of reactivating that. The OU has given us a window to reactivate in 2025. We're working with DEEC International to get an interested group, work through the associate chapter, all that. We have 10 or 12 actively interested alums, and another set of alums of about 150 or so. We have a website, we do a newsletter. We haven't been actively asking for money or people to help us yet, but we're at the point where we need to start. So I wanted to attend this to hear people talk about, well, I've sold encyclopedias door to door when I was in college, so I know how to stick out my hand and ask for money, but I need to know how to do it with this kind of group, especially in people of our chapter who are sort of entering their dotage. So that's kind of where I am with that.
Okay, Michael Furman, Delta Chi. What school is that?
That's Cornell.
Cornell. Great
So,
school.
Hi, gentlemen. Our experience I'll say as in one of the older chapters with a lot of alumni is that we ran a successful capital campaign that raised about $500,000 over a 5-year period, and it ended in 2022. And that money got spent to Charles' point, right? That money got spent, very quickly. Ithaca's a small town. Cornell's the big guy there. And so, you want to have anything done, it's very expensive. And because our house is owned by the university, our first call goes to university electricians before you can hire an external one. So, so the challenge we have now with the capital campaign is how do we continue to raise money without, waiting a few years and doing another campaign? I think a lot of our guys are used to us asking for money on a constant basis. And so we're feeling like we've had a little bit of that wearing down. So we've shifted to instead try to have 2 events during the year to help people focus. And so one of those events we're piggybacking on. Cornell itself has a big fundraising day, a giving day, like you see so many groups have. So we take the Cornell Giving Day and they let us have a page for DEEC, and we raise money that way. So that money goes to the university account that's held on our behalf, and I realize not everybody has that, but since they do so much advertising, we've piggybacked on that. The thing that's helped us raise money in that event, though, is matching money. And so for you guys who are thinking about raising money, what I found was a couple of guys who would give me a commitment for money, and then we use that to say, hey, if you give $200, it's going to get matched with $400 or whatever, right? So that matching has been a way to have some excitement and something to talk about rather than we just need money. And the match also, gives people a reason to give today versus any other day. So that's been successful for us. And the other thing we did was we took a dead alum, a guy who's got a plaque in our house because he died over 100 years ago. And so when you walk into the Deke house, we have a fireplace with a big plaque. So pretty much everybody, new members, I mean, people learn that plaque. So this year we took his birthday and said, let's celebrate his birthday by raising money to do something for the house. We need a new refrigerator. We need something else. And so we use that as a more uniquely chapter-faced idea as a way to raise money. So those are the two things we've done in shifting.
Right. Well, let's move on. I want to move on so everybody gets a chance and we get to the
Go
top
for
of the hand. Okay, Ryan Michaels.
Hi guys, my name is Ryan Michaels. I am an alumni, excuse me, alumni of the Psi Omega chapter at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Excuse me. Class of 2017. We've done spot run. Oh my God, I'm dying over here.
You want me to come back to you?
Yeah, actually, no, my voice just came back. We're good. So we've been doing some spot fundraising lately as we're a small chapter, mostly for recruitment purposes. But now that our recruitment's gotten solid and we've kicked off the ground, we're looking to do a lot bigger of a fundraising campaign to build a new house. Our chapter is a little unique in the sense that there's a big gap in our alumni, about 40, 50 years. They went off campus in the late 70s and recolonized with actually my class in 2015. So we have a good gap, but we have a lot of motivated guys who are willing to get stuff going.
Great. Dan Gindelman, Alpha Phi.
The University of Toronto, north of the border, for those of you that don't know where that is. But we have a reason for hopping on the call. We have a couple of really kind of good tools available and good opportunities upcoming this year. We're celebrating 125 years of continuous operation. And we have I think Charlie had mentioned, we have our own version of the Ramp and Line Foundation due to the fact that we're in Canada. We have to actually set up independently. And we had this set up a number of years ago, and regrettably, we've struggled to kind of solicit and actually collect funds. I think we got in the neighborhood of maybe $70,000 to $80,000. Not for a lack of people willing to donate, but I think we have a challenge of showcasing what the value proposition is. And really, given the fact that we have a big kind of gala event occurring later in the year in September, we really want to take advantage of that opportunity to solicit funds, but also showcase what it all stands for and what the reason behind that is. And so hoping to get some direction on that.
Good deal. Andy K.
Well, thanks very much, Jim. I'm also with Dan Gandelman as an alumnus since 1975. And yeah, Dan and I and a group of 8 others are putting together a rather remarkable 125th anniversary. But it started many years ago with the charitable foundation that Dan mentioned. And it's been struggling because of Canadian laws about how you run a charity. And we know that the Deke Line Foundation, which I've been a very strong supporter of, and the Deke Club in New York, I find that the opportunity for Deke International to raise money for their various chapters stops at the 49th parallel. Canadian, the 30%, 32% difference between the American and Canadian exchange rates really hampers the ability to raise money. And as much as we'd love to put money towards the Deke Rampant Line Foundation, we're sitting here kind of looking at how do we raise money in Canada for the 8 Canadian chapters that we've got. And I'm looking at this charity kind of going, we can do that. The only province of Ontario, British Columbia, that allows a charity to be registered includes bricks and mortar. not just scholarships and bursaries and travel, but they allow bricks and mortars. So for instance, if in Toronto or Winnipeg or in Alberta, we were able to raise money by the executives or their alumni into the charity, that money can be returned to those charities at 90%, can be returned to those charities, to those active chapters for the purpose of rebuilding, mortgaging, creating healthcare services for those students in those houses. And that's the uniqueness of having the charity in the province of British Columbia. Dan Gendelman is quite correct. Quite frankly, right now, he is doing a monumental job for our chapter at Alpha Phi, but he's also leading the charge for other chapters to take note in Canada. When I went to North Carolina with this past June with two of our members of the Alpha Phi chapter, I was absolutely gobsmacked by the way the undergraduate executives, and we had a good Lord knows, we had a good number of alumni from across North America represented at that conference. I am hoping that that news can be built upon so that all the alumni of all chapters across North America can give more. And there's got to be a tax savings for them. That's the only reason. That's the only reason, Jim, that the charity in Canada exists, because we can't give. We can't give money.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a unique situation. I'll try to address that. Chris Esposito.
Hi guys, thanks. Chris Esposito, Phi Alpha 08. So up at University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Just recently rejoined our housing association, and we're looking to kick off some alumni fundraising in the next year or so. COVID was a bit of a wake-up call on how things can turn quickly. I mean, the chapter's strong out here and the alumni support strong, but the house is still a very expensive thing to run, and we're looking to improve and put ourselves in a position to rebuild at some point.
Okay. Jeff Richardson is a familiar face, fellow. He and I were on the phone about 30 minutes ago on something else. And we raised a few bucks there at Psi Delta, and hopefully there'll be more.
Yep. So I'm Jeff Richardson, class of '87. We own our own house. We started off campus. We were the only off-campus fraternity at Wake. We tried to become recognized back in the '70s, and the faculty felt like we had enough fraternities that they'd approved in the '40s or whenever. And so there were no new fraternities being welcomed at Wake when we started. So we grew up off campus and unrecognized. Then we were forced to be recognized in the early '90s because we basically had all the attributes of a recognized fraternity other than the recognition. We built we had two kind of post-war cottages right across the street from campus that we had bought, and we tore those down in 2004 and built a real fraternity house, 22 bedrooms. We did that with about maybe $200,000 of fundraising that we did just among ourselves and mortgage. We're now, whatever, the house is cash flowing. We're getting the mortgage work down. We raised, with Jim's help, a couple $100,000 to do some refitting of the house. We're putting a patio and social area in the back of the place. So they're doing well. I think they've got 60, 70 brothers. Well, by the way, Wake did pull our recognition 4 years ago over a series of, we were in trouble because we were in trouble, and then we got in trouble for being in trouble, and it just never ended. But things have gone just fine since then. Thank you to Deep National for standing behind us. And they've not been in trouble since then. 53 years continuous operation, hopefully another 53 or more.
That's
But
great.
yep.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Gary Tolbert.
I'm Gary Talbert, 85 from Troy University, Pi Beta chapter. We're kind of past 10 years, we're in the process of just restarting everything. We had about a 30+ year break. So I got some pretty good buy-in from the younger alums. It's literally like 2 different generations. I'm trying to herd the cats, as they say, and getting some of the older alums involved also. Mainly our fundraising efforts pretty much go into an escrow account, which you have to have with the university because we're in university housing. And now we're trying to get beyond just the bare minimum and trying to have extra funds for mainly to help the guys with Rush. It's just, that's their main focus. If they can have more funding for Rush to compete with the houses that are literally almost 4 times their size, it would definitely help the recruitment, getting better quality guys. But it's mainly a generational gap is what I'm facing right now. It's biggest difficulty is with the older group. We lost our charter in '86. So that first 10-year era, if I can get some participation, more participation from the older alums, that would make a really good situation for us. That's kind of what I'm really trying to focus right now.
Great. Thanks, Gary. Matt.
Oh, hello guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm in chapter Omega from the University of Arizona, class of 22. So I just recently graduated. I came here to this meeting trying to learn how to help support my chapter. We just started in 2020 and we had about 30-year gap from our previous alumni. So I'm trying to learn how to support my chapter as an alumni advisor and participate with fundraising. Right now, we're doing a philanthropy event for the Southern Humane Center of Southern Arizona Humane Center. We raised about a quarter of our goal, and I'd like to learn how to assist my chapter a little bit more with fundraising.
Great. John Thomas.
Yes, sir. Phi Epsilon in Minneapolis, 1973 alumni. And Matt, good luck in the Marines. I'm a retired Navy commander. I flew for the Navy. We've got well started back here with matching and fundraising campaign. House had major improvements. There's a waiting list now for people to stay in the house where there wasn't before, but we still have more to be done. The brick out face, the kitchen, good strong house right now, good representation on campus in the IFC. And look forward to right now to raising some more money and trying to get some other matching done. We had a good matching run by one of our alumni, put up $50,000 for matching, 2550. So we raised a lot of money that way and just trying to get some more money raised now and working with him to go on to the next step for better on the house.
And John, you're with Phi Epsilon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I just see one more, Carl Haynes, Beta Tau.
Yeah, hey, Beta Tau 2020. Just joined the alumni board as secretary. We've been around for 13 years, so we don't have a huge or kind of older, well-established alumni base. A lot of guys kind of early careers or starting families. So kind of with that, we're just starting to, I guess, develop and think about what our, fundraising looks like. And I think on the horizon is fundraising to look to buy a house, and, difficulties of getting buy-in for guys to be co-signers for a house purchase as well is another thought.
Great. I think that's it. We covered everybody, right? Do we need to leave anybody out? Okay. So let me start. Let me just, before I share my screen and we go into PowerPoint heaven, Deke is one of the easiest things to raise money for I've ever seen. That's the good news. Bad news is it's how do you get to those guys? And all of you are dealing with gaps and young and old and different things. But I have found, and so this is a great area for you, is just knowing how to do it, trying to do it in the correct way, because not every DEEC graduates. All of us, you wouldn't be on this call if you didn't have a deep emotional tie with Delta Kappa Epsilon. It's been part of your life, a significant part of your life. You loved it when you were there. You love it now. It's not perfect, but you've got an emotional tie, and that makes for great fundraising. You just got to get in there. You got to get in there somehow to get the heart and the head and the checkbook. But DEEC, when you do that, people will respond and respond well. Let me share my screen and I'll just get going here. Okay. It's interesting, just one thing John Thomas said from Phi Epsilon. There's actually been, we're now getting close to a $500,000 goal. And there's one alum who's given probably $360,000 of that. So that we've been very, in that chapter, we've been very fortunate that this alum has stepped forward. They're not all like that, but they're out there. And so I think you'll be sometimes surprised with what people can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about money. Okay. Let me move this. This is an old saying from North Carolina. Money is the root of all evil. And I added this, of course, and all DEEC chapters need roots. Okay. So that's where we're starting. We're going to talk about going for the gold. That's a theme that I use in a lot of webinars that I do, but that's what we're all about. We're about the money. And it's really important to keep focused on that gold. That's what we want, because we've got these dreams. It may be just redoing a kitchen. It may be getting just a new driveway or a new house or something small, but it all takes money. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to talk, I'm going to talk first about alumni fundraising, the kind of fundraising we've been talking about for the last few minutes, how alumni can do that effectively. But also, you know, your chapters, the actives raise money. It may be, you know, a baseball dunking thing, or it may be at Greek Day trying to raise $500 or something or whatever. And there's a role that alumni can play in that, that helps the actives, but also helps the fundraising as those young people grow up into alumni. So I'm going to talk about, spend most of my time on alumni fundraising, but also cover the actives. So this is what I see as the things that you're going to have to be successful. And we'll break these down. First is you've got to have solid, helpful actives. If you've got a lousy chapter of guys that really don't care, going to tear up the house or whatever, that's a big problem. The houses that have really good actives who are responsible and are going to take care of things and help with fundraising, that's something you really need. And you need an established active alumni association and alumni board, or board and association. They're one and the same. And you know this, the greatest, I think the data shows, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, the data shows that the major factor of a fraternity chapter being successful is alumni involvement, not just having alumni, but having alumni involved. And if that's not happening, it's a problem. So while you're thinking about raising money, you got to obviously think about how do we make our alumni association better. That's kind of a whole nother discussion there, but it's really important. Third, reliable database of alumni, and this is a problem. Deke International is really the keeper of your alumni database: name, address, email, phone. Some of them are in great shape, some are in lousy shape. But as you think about fundraising, you got to think about how do we find our alumni? And there are ways to do that, but that's really important. We got to have people that we can talk to. So the alumni database is really important for you. And you need somebody really to run that fundraising, somebody from the outside like myself or a highly experienced alumnus. There's got to be somebody that takes that on, an alumnus or an outside person, or probably a combination of the two, who are going to be responsible for this. Somebody say, I will take this on as my responsibility as an alum. And when you pair that with a professional at some level, you're going to end up in a good place. And realize that fundraising, just like anything, it just can be a slow build. It needs to be a long term. When clients come to me and say, we want to talk to you about helping us and we need to start raising money right away because we got this big need. That's not a good situation. So you've got to have kind of a long term. Okay, this thing is going to take a while. We're not going to raise $100,000 for an annual fund the first time we go out with it, but we might raise 25, and next year maybe 50, and then we got 100. Then we'll be ready for capital campaign. Boom. That's a good way to go at that point. So a few more. Hope you're not totally discouraged because you don't have all those things, but you can get them. It's nice to have ability to think about both an annual fund and a capital/major gift campaign. It really, the best situations have both. If you're starting from zero, I'm going to talk about if you're starting from zero, starting an annual fund and getting that going, and then a capital campaign is really the better way to go. Got to have a really good case. Case is fundraising speak for the major reason to give. And it needs to be short. It needs to be persuasive of why you should give your money to this Deke chapter. You got to have a good case, and it can't be 10 things. You got to be able to boil that down into just, to use the cliche of an elevator pitch. It needs to be even shorter than an elevator pitch. It ought to be 4 words or 5 words. That's part of the process that you need to have. And you need to think about having an integrated marketing communications program to power your fundraising. And this can be as simple as an electronic newsletter, email blast, brochures, special events fall under that, alumni weekend, homecoming, whatever. But you've got to have that marketing communications behind the fundraising for it to be successful. So think of those two together. And finally, it's really important to have parents who have the money and care about their son's fraternity experience. Sometimes doing a parents campaign for something can be really successful. I've seen others not so much. But don't forget the parents, and we'll talk about that. Any questions before I move on to how do you think about professional help? Any questions at this point?
Jim Gray, it's Andy Kilpatrick here in Toronto.
Yeah.
One of the things that we found interesting was that for damn near decades, when I was the alumni president of our association, we had our annual dues at $25 a year for, I don't know, for, like, as they say, decades. Now, this year, we have ramped it up to $50, like double it. And you know what? Not a single member who has given us $25 a year consecutively did they balk. And that is like working capital. That is that stuff that allows the lights to be left on. It's not going to build new bricks and mortar for the house. But I was absolutely surprised that these guys didn't balk. And when we went out to ask other members of the alumni to say, this is what your peer group has done for years and years, we noticed that you might be interested in joining that group. Would you be interested at $50 a month? And damn, if we didn't get another 25% of people. So it's communication, and I agree. In our case, we have 460 alumni on our roll. We only have email addresses for about, I'm guessing, 80 to 90 of them.
Yep.
And then a lot of them, they've moved on. Their addresses are no longer viable. And quite frankly, as much as Deke back in the days when they set up the books that we could buy with all the information, we found that 60% of the information in those directories were wrong. And
Yeah.
I have a problem. Doug Lanfer and I have talked about this a number of times over the last many, many years. Doug has been good enough, and Craig Dick, to come up to Toronto. And with all the problems that have gone on with the Canadian chapters, they have been stalwart in their belief that the charity and the way that the alumni are running themselves today, not yesterday, is going to move us forward. And I think, Tim, that the first part is to engage people on the subtle basis of, all right, give us $50 a month, or sorry, $50 a year and then you go back at them. We had 5 guys give over 10 grand each to that charity I referred to earlier. And that was like 10, 15 years ago, and they have no interest in re-engaging, except they will pay their $50 a year now.
Yeah. I have a question, then I want to take on the dues question first, and then the database question. You've got 260 guys that you can reach. How many of them have agreed to pay dues?
I would say half.
Well, that's good.
Jim, we had a Christmas function back in December where we had over 135 guys, half of whom came out of the woodwork that we have not seen in years. And I'm serious, like 35 years or so. And then you have obviously the hardcore that come out. Yeah. And those people do not have the wherewithal to give us $360,000.
Right. Well, let me go back to this dues thing. And if you've got 5 fundraising professionals in a room, you probably get 5 opinions about dues versus annual fund.
Agreed.
Here's the way I see it, and the way I've seen it successful. One is to realize that dues is a way to get started. You know, if you had 150 guys, Andy, and they gave $50, that's $7,500. That's good money. It's not a lot of money. So if you want to look at dues as a way to get started, it's a pretty good way. Now, you have to provide something of value for them, not just, if you're going to pay dues, what am I getting back? And so you got to think through that. What you give me $50, what are you going to get other than a thank you letter? And so that's important. But I would look at dues as an entry point, but to quickly get to an annual fund. The difference in dues, and some of it is semantics, but I think semantics are important. Dues feels to some donors or many donors like an obligation. Okay. I got to pay dues. When I was at the Deke House, I had to pay dues. At the country club, I got to pay dues. Annual fund is totally voluntary. So you're going to get more on the upside, I think, with an annual fund than with dues, but it's not a bad place to start. Now, the database, that's the problem.
No.
The way to build a database is matches up with the most effective way of raising money, and that's peer-to-peer. And I'll deal with that in a couple of minutes. But peer-to-peer means that instead of trying to get $50 out of a guy through an email, is Andy calls him on the phone and says, "Hey, give us some money. Hey, remember me? I was in your class." And the same way to build the database. Once you get a group of alumni who are involved, you can motivate them to reach out. They've got, alumni have their friends' contact information. They just hadn't shared it with Deke International or your chapter. So that's job one before you ask somebody to reach out to a peer to raise money. Reach out to them and find out what their email address is and what their mailing address is. I think I've answered those.
Well,
So
Jim,
professional help is really important. Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question. We have our 125th anniversary coming up.
Yeah.
And we just met with our organizing committee last night. And we have started to divide up an alumni list that goes back to 1951. People that still are alive. And there are, I guess, 5 or 6 of us on the committee that know and have engaged with all these people. And we're using about 61 of the people on that list to engage their peer group the year before they joined, the year that they joined, and the year after they joined. And then we've got another person that is 1 year removed from that. So there's an overlap in the hopes that we're going to be able to encourage like 60 years of Deke at Alpha Phi chapter to join us at Hart House at the University of Toronto for our 125th and pay $125 for the privilege. In so much as we do that, I don't feel we should be putting the tap on them for additional funds, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're wrong there. The anniversary as Deke International's 175th proved out. It's a good springboard.
Yeah, I was there. Yep.
Yeah. But people are really not motivated. Dekes are not motivated to give just because it's the 125th anniversary. They're going to have to be motivated through another case. Just being 175 or 125 is really not the motivator that you want. And so you got to come up with, you got to give because we want another 150 years, which is a good argument, or we need to fix up the house so we can get enough guys to, get 125 more years. So yeah, anniversaries are good and you can run them for a couple of years. People don't object. You can say, wait a minute, 175th, you ran a fundraiser for 2 years around it. Well, yeah, that's what happens. So nobody's going to blow a whistle if you're outside of raising money outside of that 12-month period. But just realize you got to have a case that's outside of that anniversary per se. Now, I'm biased, of course, but I've seen it. I think professional help is the way to go, paired with your volunteers. And these are the three that I recommend. I've worked with all of them, particularly the last one. Affinity Connection is works with quite a few DEAC chapters. It's up in State College, PA. They're very good. They work for Beta DEAC, my chapter. I've been out and used Pennington in Kansas, and they're, these are big companies. They've got 40, 50 people working for them, and they do everything. They do it up big. And I think, and they're expensive. You're probably going to pay a good amount of money for them just because they're the really market leaders and the ones that I trust to help DEAC. But sometimes you don't need all that firepower. Sometimes you just need one guy like me. So I'd love to talk to you at some point about helping you. And I think I'm reasonably priced and have all the parts of the enterprise that you need that these big companies have. But they're out there, and I would certainly give you an introduction to either one of those if you'd like it. So I think, there's nothing like having a professional help you that, because you can waste a lot of time, going down paths that over time would not be fruitful. That the pros would say, "No, that doesn't work, but this works." Any questions about the professionals helping you out?
Hey, Jim, Charlie Brown here. Question on it. Do they set up for people being able to donate appreciated securities, like appreciated stocks, just to get the tax advantage of doing it that way? Or is that usually done separately? Because I know in RFL, we have the ability to do it, but not many people take advantage of it.
No, but all three of those firms can help with those kind of donations, but they're not going to handle all the stock transfer. They'll have, we'll find a transfer agent for you at a bank and help you get it all set up and that kind of thing. But no, they don't do the banking side of that.
Okay, because I know that I've talked to someone at Charles Schwab, and you can actually set up charitable accounts there, but you obviously need to have some sort of minimum balance to make it really work.
Yeah, and the professionals will know how to do that. And there's good money out there, and those appeals are effective. So just one more difference. These big companies, they do all the planning, all the brochures, internet, website, all that kind of stuff, but they don't help you really ask for money. This guy down here loves to ask DEACs for money. I love to do that. And that's the difference between the big firm and the small firm. So I take great pride in actually helping chapters make the pitch. And working with big donors like Mark Miller at Phi Epsilon, who that big donor is. I spent a lot of time with Mark, and so that's one difference there. So this is another saying from North Carolina: you better load your brain before shooting off your mouth. It's really important, right? I've been using that for a long time. That always works because it's true. So when you're thinking about fundraising, first things first, you got to have a good plan. You can't just go out and start raising money. Okay, got to have a good plan. There again, that's where a professional can help you do that. My plans look like this, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but there in my plan, there's a 10-finger plan. First, what is the situation analysis with your chapter? So if I go in and I'm helping you, that's the first thing I want to know. What is the situation, good and bad? Okay. And then you lay out what are the objectives of the program. How much money do we want to raise? How do we want to raise it? The objectives section. And then audiences is really important. That's the third finger. Who are we really going to talk to? And there's certain different layers of alumni. They're young, they're old, they're rich, they're middle class. They're all kind of different chapters. And so you really got to think about what are those audiences and in what order do they come? Okay. Next comes the most critically important part of a fundraising plan, and that's strategies. I taught a whole course on that. I do teach a course at UNC in the journalism school about strategic planning. And the hardest thing for these young people to understand is the difference in a strategy and an objective and a tactic.
Hey, Jim, I bet you've moved to a different slide, but you haven't moved forward.
No, there's no.
Okay. All right.
I don't have
Good.
a slide on this. I'll go right into the tactics part. So the strategy, what are those governing principles? What are those governing techniques that's going to be the umbrella over this program? And then comes the tactics. What are we going to do under those strategies to raise this money? There, I could spend an hour talking just about how to do the strategic part. And then comes the tactics. What are we going to do? I'm going to go to that in a second. Next, obviously, is timetable. What's our timetable? What's our budget? How are we going to pay for this? How much is it going to cost? And then the ninth finger, I think if I'm counting correctly, is evaluation. How do we know how successful we're being? And of course, how much money is coming in is the most important thing, but there are other factors. Are we building our alumni base? Are we setting ourselves up for long-term fundraising? Those evaluations need to be done as well as the money that comes in. And finally is the result. If we do everything in that, and those 9 fingers, what are we going to have? And the place to end up is we're going to have X number of dollars to do Y and put us on a track to be sustainable over a long period of time. That's the result that whole plan is trying to reach. So it's a really important plan. And you guys know that you're in business, but there are a lot of people that want to start fundraising with no real plan. And that's not good. It's not good for the long run. So let's just jump right to the tactics. I'm going to give you, not necessarily in order, but some of the things that I would recommend you think about, that you do, that I've learned over time can be effective. Some of them are really obvious. Some may be new to you, but here they are. Any questions up to this point? Still not going to go 90 minutes, but okay. So we talked about this, your database. You need a system. You need a CRM system. Most of you know that that's customer relationship management. It was a big buzzword in the world of business, what, about 10 years ago? But you got to have a database, and those can be provided by your outside professionals. There are lots of products out there. Some of them as big as Salesforce that you can use, that big companies can use, and has a fundraising component, down to one that called Dot Drives. It's only $125 a month, but they do a good job of database management. They're a startup, and I'm using them on one client. And you've got to have a money collection system. Where's the money going to go? Who's going to count it, etc. And then get Deke International, as I said, is normally the keeper of the alumni list. You may have your own, but they're very helpful. Doug Lamfer, Turner Spears is the #2 guy at Deke International. Is very helpful, helping you understand your database and getting it to you and helping you build it. That's a real service that Deke International can help you with, is that database. But you will need a system, a CRM system to keep track of everything. Also in fundraising speak is CRM systems called a moves management system. A move is when somebody contacts a donor and you need to record that. Had lunch with Bob or had dinner with so-and-so, or a phone call or email. That needs to be all collected so that you're not tripping over each other. The worst thing in fundraising is to call a prospect and have him say, oh, well, somebody else did call me last week. I already gave you $50. Don't you know what you're doing? Well, I guess not. So it's keeping track of these donors and who's been contacted and how and what they've said and who's pledged and who's given is a really, really important tactic. Website. Everybody needs a giving website. And there again, the professionals, all of us can do a website for you. Doesn't have to be extensive. The one we did for Psi Delta Wake Forest for Jeff is one page, pretty simple. We did some key messages and told them the ways to give and showed them pictures of things that needed to be fixed up. And same thing with Phi Epsilon. It's a pretty simple page or 2-page website that really drive people to give money. So that's really important. You know, we live in that world. People, if you call somebody and say, can you donate? They'll say, well, yeah, give me your website. And that website obviously has to contain ways to give, which is really important. I need a credit card system in there, which are fairly easily set up, where to send a check, how to pledge. Those are really important parts of that website. So if you're thinking about raising money, you got to have a website. It's not very expensive to set that up. Special events you talked about, golf tournaments, homecoming, parents alumni weekend. Special events are really important. They are I don't think be seen just in isolation. We're going to do all of our fundraising around 1 or 2 special events. They're good, but they should just be part of your fundraising, of our fundraising. We're going to do the special events. Like you think back with the Deke 175th campaign, the special event was a big black tie dinner in New York. That was just one part of gosh, 3 years worth of raising money. And as I said, we had a goal of 1.75 million and we went well over 2 million. I think it was 2.4, something like that. So yes, special events are really good, but don't rely on them for everything. Email blasts, you're very familiar with those. There's some people, and I pretty much ascribe to this, that every donor should be touched 10 times a year. That's enough time to, getting your message out there, but it's not enough for people to say, I give up, please stop sending me stuff. 10 may be a little bit high as far as touches of a prospect, but it needs to be an ongoing series, and email blasts are one of the ways to do those. And you're quite familiar with those. And those roll off easily from your CRM system.
Jim, if I could just interject, Doug Lamford's Friday reports that he keeps giving out are incredibly consistent, ongoing. Can us as Alumni Association remind people to sign up, to review those things, to stay in touch with Geek International and what's going across Canada and the United States? Would that be one way of connecting? You say 10 times a year. I'm saying that's like 52 times a year.
Yeah, I think you've hit a good point, Andy, and that is how many of you guys, raise your hand, how many of you guys get the D Quarterly magazine? Most everybody, but not everybody. I'm not sure.
Even Jim, if it's on the internet and they don't get the physical magazine at their address, even that's enough.
Everybody gets a digital copy. Everybody that has an email in our database gets a digital copy emailed to them.
So yes, urging alumni to let Deke International know your whereabouts is really important. Absolutely. And then they'll get a lot of communications from international. And you couple that with what you're going to do as a chapter, then they get a steady diet. When we went with that anniversary campaign, Deke International never raised money. All we had was a dues system, and that wasn't working really well. So Deke has started to do really good outreach to alumni, much better than in the past. Craig is doing a great job with alumni, and Turner and Doug as well. So yes, and Doug Lamford does a Friday report every Friday of what's going on with all the chapters, and he'll put anybody on the list. You don't have to be a donor or anything. If you got guys that really want to keep up with Deke, ask Doug to put you on his distribution list. It's really good.
We are definitely going to make sure that happens.
Yes. E-newsletters, your electronic newsletters, really important. You've seen many of those, but they're important electronically. I think I've got, yeah, I'm going to come to that. These electronic newsletters are really important because they show a lot of good pictures of what needs to be done, and shows the actives and all the good things about Deke. But don't forget the print pieces. Pound for pound, a print solicitation brings in more money than any electronic solicitation. It's hard to believe in this day and time, but it's true. You don't have to do a 10-page, brochure, but you need to do something in print. As far as those 10 touches, needs to be a couple of them are in print. People can read them, put them on their desk, and respond to, a month from then. The internet's great, but it's gone. It's gone that next day. So don't forget the print piece. Parent communications and donations are one way to go. There again, I've been disappointed in parents' response, but also with others, I've been really encouraged. But that's an important thing. It's really, this project's underway that can be shown, really important. For example, once again, with Phi Epsilon in Minnesota, they fixed up a library, and they fixed up the living room and bar. And the way to get more money is to show the things that have been done. People really want to see that their money is being put to use. So as soon as you can, let's say you're raising money for whatever, renovation or rush or whatever, as soon as you can spend some of the early money and show some results, the better it's going to be down the way. It's really important. People are visual. They want to see that money is in use and going for good things. So do some spending as early as you can. And it doesn't always, you can't always do that. But if you're raising money for an anniversary to do something, start showing that you're doing something. This is one thing that I don't think it's as important maybe as it used to be when everybody was itemizing the deductions. But if Deke Foundation, one of the things that Deke Foundation can do for you is if you're going to spend money on your house and you do it in an academic way, fix up the library, make a library, add computers for study room, those contributions can be tax deductible working through the Deke Foundations. So just remember that. Some people might respond well to that. I know it's important for some really big donors. They do pay attention to tax in a big way. And finally, I don't think it's final, stewardship program. It's really important. Stewardship is a term, I think we stole it from our churches. To steward has become a verb. I don't quite understand. But nonetheless, stewardship, I call it strategic thanking. Merely sending somebody a letter of thanks or an email of thanks. It's okay for most people, but there's some wonderful things you can do that are better. There's a service called ThankView that I use, which creates, for not too much money, creates customized video thank yous for donors. You send an email to a donor, it's given $1,000. His name is Jim. And there's the president of the house saying, Jim, thank you for that $1,000. We're going to do this with that money. Thank you. 10 seconds. But wow, what's Jim going to think? Man, they know who I am. And it's going to make that donor feel a lot better. There are other things you can do under strategic thanking. That's a very creative one. There's some new things, but don't forget the thanking part. It's really important. All of us can remember probably times that we felt unappreciated by some of the donations we've made, and we certainly don't want any Deke to feel that way. If the donor feels good about his gift, he'll give again, and he might give a little bit more money this time. So those are, I don't mean to give you that tactical list. By the way, this will be available to you. We're recording this, and Craig will have this deck. These are not all the tactics, but these are the most effective ones that I've found to raise money in the Deke Nation. As I said, these help you reach into the emotions of alumni. And once you do that, not everybody's going to give, but a lot will, and it'll be meaningful for you. So here's the thing I would say for first steps for you. And I'm going to talk briefly and then step down. Have a discussion with your alumni board and identify some startup expense money. What I mean is, in your alumni board, we need some upfront money to do some things to get a campaign going, to do some research, do the CRM, do whatever, set up the website. But have a discussion in the alumni board and have some of the alumni hopefully say, I'll put in some for some startup funds to do what we need to do. You need to identify 2 or 3 gung-hos among the alumni, some guys that really believe in it, can set an example for giving. They don't have to be the guys that are going to give the most, but they need to be gung-ho. And you can probably know already who those guys are that really love Deke and are willing to help the chapter. So get them identified early. Will be very effective for you. Get that alumni list from Deke and see what you think about it. And mesh that with the local list if you have it. And if you're in a bad way, then start the peer-to-peer building that list that I talked about. That's an important thing to do. Identify and recruit 2 to 3 alums with resources. These are different than the gung-hos. Could be one and the same, but there may be some workers here, the gung-hos, but not the big givers. But if you can get 2 or 3 guys that really get excited about this and are willing to put some major money in, then you're halfway home. And you know, you can do, believe it or not, you can buy research on how much money anybody in the United States has. And we can certainly do that with Deeks, but it's expensive. We don't need to do that though. You'll know who the guys who've been real successful and are generous, and get them involved early. Get professional guidance, outside manager, and that has this backroom capabilities to do the website, collect the money, and all 3 of those firms can do that. And you can trust them to handle your money in a responsible way. And finally, set a reachable, reasonable goal. It's easy to overshoot. You know, you get around a table and you start talking about your old Deke, and people get excited. Yeah, I know 3 guys will put in 50, and all of a sudden you've got $1 million. People think, well, we can go out and raise $1 million. Well, show me the proof that you can do that. Where have you raised 500,000? If you raised 150. So I try to temper that. A reachable goal is really important. Put it where you can get there. And then you can always raise that goal once you get there, but try to be reasonable with, and I'll tell you what, if anybody offers you a campaign pyramid, throw them out the door. It's worthless. A pyramid is when a professional like me says, okay, we're gonna need 1 guy to give $1 million and 5 guys to give 200,000 and boom, 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 boom. We need 200 guys to give 25. And guess what? All that turns out to equal your goal. Well, it's bullshit. Don't fall for that. Yeah, you need some big guys, you need some little guys, but it's not going to work out like any pyramid. So beware of that. Setting a goal is really important, and a professional can help you. Looking at your database and what you've done in the past can help you set a reasonable goal. Okay, so any questions before I talk a little bit about actives and then close up? There's got to be some questions about the tactical stuff. Anybody?
Yeah, Jim, I absolutely, I really just wanted to chime in because I have an engagement here in about 20 minutes. I forgot to list in all the stuff I'm involved in. I'm also a remote data analyst for Formula One racing, and I'm about to have to, tune in and start working on some tire data for a couple of the teams because free practice 1 in Australia is about to start. So I just wanted to thank you for all this. I mean, there's some stuff that you've mentioned that can absolutely completely change our chapter. I heard you mention a few times, there's if you're in bad shape, you're speaking directly to Mukai at Maryville College. And I think I put in the chat that, raising $100 on a Saturday at a car wash would be like monumental for us. And so I just wanted to let you know, there's a lot of hurdles that we have to get over. One of them is that we're very young. We started in 2001. So our alumni association, they're out there, but it's very, it's very hard to get, people behind the cause of our chapter. And a lot of that is, I think we've fallen into this toxic mindset that, and I feel like this is present in fraternity culture in the entirety of this country. And that is, man, the actives, oh, those little shits, they're just out to party and have fun. And, they're not really behind it. And I think that we have the gung-hos. I really like that verbiage. I think there are gung-hos in our alumni association. We have guys that, are lawyers and, that own their own businesses and or chief executives at their companies. But, getting them to buy into this, I think, is our first hurdle. And I think it's something we're going to have to work very, very hard on. I think we've got our work cut out for us, but with what you've shared so far, you've equipped me with a hell of a tool belt to go about this task. And before I hop off, I really just wanted to let you know that I definitely will be reaching out to you and Craig and starting to formulate some ideas. And maybe it does start with making $100 at a Saturday car wash, like I said, because that would be, $100 at a car wash on a Saturday would be monumental for our chapter. And again, before I hop off, I really just wanted to, thank you for having me in this meeting. And my mindset as of right now is it's time to get to work.
Okay, well, hang on just 30 seconds because this
Yeah,
is good
sure.
to you. It's really important to get your actives to know about fundraising. And if they're gonna, if you can get them as the ideal thing is when your guys are seniors and they don't have any money, but they might give $25 to the chapter as they go off to where they're going off. And it's starting the young guys giving money to decals that over time can really grow. And so that's an important part. Get them into donating while they're undergraduates and get them into raising money. And it may be a campus car wash that the actives do. Find out what needs to be done at the house, help the guys figure that out. What's reasonable to do, what works around campus, the golf tournaments, alumni, the habitat bills, find out that how that campus operates and find something for them, help them to do that. And of course, let the alumni lead on any major fundraising. But if your guys want to raise $500 by doing a dunk tank, I said dunk tank, not drunk tank, that's fine, because that'll get them headed in the right direction. And have them talk to Greek Affairs office in a positive way. They want, for the most part, they want the chapters to be successful. They'll help you with ideas that maybe they've seen on that campus or in another campus about things that work for this small actives driven fundraising. It's really important. Involve the parents, obviously. Once again, get a core group of active gung-ho. It may not be Brother Beta. He may not be the guy that you want to, it may be somebody else within the chapter who's the philanthropy chair and that you can support, give him some guidance and give. And then this last one, lay on alumni support, is give some money to the actives fundraising. Go to that golf tournament. Give $25. Give them a lot of attaboys and encourage them to raise money on their own. And I mentioned the philanthropy chair, somebody that's got the ability to recruit other brothers and lead them in this effort. And as you know, one of the big problems with the fraternity is that your executive group turns over every 3-4 years. So having a good philanthropy chair on deck when the other guy graduates, that's a good thing to do. So I'm going to wrap it up here. As I talked about, we're talking about money. It is the root of all evil, people say, and we can get some more roots. We want to make Deke meaningful and sustained. We all want to do that, and just know that people want to give to Deke. So just get to them and get to them in some of the ways that will motivate them. So many times we've been raising money for one thing or another. We know when we give that guy somebody a call, they don't want to give to the Cancer Society or whatever. But if they'd had cancer, they certainly do. They don't want to give to something. But when you talk to a Deke, a peer Deke, and you say what we need and why we need it, that guy's going to respond. He may just be a 25 or pledge $100 over 3 years, but he's going to give, and you're going to feel good about it. And you can build on that and build a sustained program. And that's what we're looking for, something that lasts over time. So I'm going to close with Q&A. Deke, go for the gold. Thank you for participating and helping Deke. Here's my stuff. Never hurts to have a phone call. I don't charge for initial phone calls. I want to help Deke too. And this is a business of mine, but it's also a love of mine to help my fraternity. So reach out to me, James A. Gray, II@gmail. There's the phone number. I think we've still got a good number of guys on. I'm really happy about that. Not everybody has gone to the bar, to the dinner table. I appreciate that. Any final questions or comments?
Yeah, Jim, if I could add, so one, I would say Psi Delta engaged Jim to help us with some fundraising and building plans. And it was very, very helpful. And I will say, one, Jim knows what he's doing and he knows how to do this with Deeks. But two, I will just say, we're all busy and we don't professionally fundraise. Having a bird dog is very, very important. And so like having somebody tell you, here's what you guys need to do, and then reminding you again and again was really important to us. I definitely failed. I know I could have done a way better job than I did. But Jim is a lot cheaper than other professional fundraisers who do this. That's not my question. My question, Jim, well, you can answer, you can say something about that, but I do have a question, which is, we have never, and our chapter's been pretty successful without being overwhelmingly so, like Beta, at raising money from brothers and alumni. I think especially among like 30 to 40-year-olds, we've done a really good job. We have never known how to raise money with parents. And I know for sure at Wake Forest, especially now, these kids are extremely wealthy and some of their parents care. And we don't know how to approach them. You know, I can lean on my pledge class brother, but I don't know how to lean on a parent that I don't know. And I don't know how to tell a 21-year-old how to lean on their parent.
Well, I don't think you need to lean on them and do it. I think with parents, just get a good list from the actives. Say, within 2 weeks, I need a list. I need email addresses and a mailing address for every one of your parents. And bird dog that and make sure you get it. I think a letter from the Brother Beta and the board chair is very effective. I don't think you need to call the parent. I think a good letter, maybe with a good follow-up of some form or fashion would be plenty. But there again, I think it's doable. But yeah, I think it's, I've done some work for a chapter that styles itself as a blue collar chapter, and those parents can't give much, and so our response was not very good for that, but that's understandable. But yeah, for Wake Forest, UNC, or some of your schools, and they love that son, and if they can give some money to make it safer and more enjoyable, better sanitation, better food, they'll do it. So yeah, I think a good heartfelt letter mailed to the homes of those parents from that Brother Beta and the board chair will do it for you.
Jim, a follow-up to the brother that just asked that very important question. Would you be able to give a kind of draft letter that could be used and or adopted by chapters for the parents? Because I agree with our brother that that's been something that's been lacking in Canadian chapters, certainly in Toronto. And I'm thinking that just to have a foundation, a basis of the written letter would help us.
Yeah, let me think about that. I never share, try not to share one client's business with another. Let me look, if I forget and I can redact it so that you don't know which chapter it is, I'd be glad to share that. So just reach out to me and
You can share anything that Psi Delta used.
yeah. No, the reason I was laughing was I'd prefer, instead of cheaper, less expensive. for grade 3 consulting. Less expensive, not cheaper. Anything else before we adjourn?
I from Canada, I would like to thank you, Jim. There have been several takeaways from the meeting. Certainly something we failed at is to make sure that our alumni with email addresses should be part of the Friday reports from Doug. The idea of a thank you note to our donors. We were good for, I've been a DEAC for 47 years, and to have the last 20 years, no, we've not been doing that. And now we have the opportunity for video, which you're right, Zoom or whatever, emails would be good. We have volunteers in the alumni that would cut our costs in setting up all kinds of promotional and philanthropy and fundraising. So actually paying somebody to like do that kind of advice when we have people in Toronto, Alberta, and Winnipeg who can do that, that works to our advantage. We have a number of centers of influence, but we don't have anybody with a lot of money. We don't have the billionaires. We don't have people who can step up.
You don't have to. You don't have to have those billionaires to be successful. You did, I think the Canadian, I'd love to explore with all you guys from Canada that whole different scenario up there. I don't really understand it. I'd love to, there might be some kind of approach for Canada that we could put together that would make sense. You did mention a video, and I didn't mention a video, but ideally, and it's the ones I do are 2 minutes long, powerfully emotional with music. They're about $15,000. And so that's kind of a luxury item for a campaign. But you may have an alum who has a video production company and can, work with me or somebody on a good script. And Yeah, it's such a visual world. So as you're doing your tactics, if there's any way you could do a video, we did put together a couple of them recently. It didn't cost 15, but those are really effective. You can send a guy an email with a link to a video. It's gonna be money. That's good. Glad you brought it up.
And also your comment about ensuring that you have some kind of year over year consistency, making sure that people are in place as one group graduates out or alumni resign from boards, that you have somebody coming up behind. That's another area that we're going to have to deal with.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, thank you guys. I hope it's been helpful. Reach out to me if I can. I'm gonna turn it back to Craig, and he's gonna talk to you about